The coldest air mass of the season is on the way, coming up for this weekend and especially into early next week. And yes, even parts of the Florida Panhandle could actually see a freeze by the time we head into Tuesday. So let's take a look at the overall North American view this morning, and all the colder air is just bottled up into northern Canada, waiting on a trigger to send it southbound, and that will likely unfold as we start into the day on Saturday. With those warmer temperature anomalies pushed out back out west, you remain on the warmer side, well above average side, for this duration of this cold snap. For those areas across the southwest, it's mainly going to be east of the Continental Divide, but on Saturday, you'll still be on the warmer side back into Texas and much of Oklahoma and a good part of the southeast, waiting for the trigger mechanism in the colder air that's finally coming down from Canada, and that's going to trigger some snow that likely will start breaking out, originating into Montana. That'll swing through the Dakotas as well as into portions of Minnesota and getting back into areas of Iowa. And then likely will swing into areas of Wisconsin and eventually has over into the overnight time frame heading into Sunday morning. Likely Chicago will likely see its first snowflakes of the year in areas of like Detroit, back into northern Indiana, places like into Cleveland. You'll likely get some lake effect snow even on the back side of this system as it really kind of cranks up and sends some snow further south into Ohio, back into West Virginia, and eventually western Pennsylvania. But you look what happens into the middle part of the country, you get on the colder side. And this is a very chilly, if not cold, somewhat Arctic air mass, and even a piece of the polar vortex, folks, is going to be shifting southbound. Now, of course, this is going to be the second week of November. It's not January by any stretch of imagination, but it's definitely going to be sending a hard freeze to areas of the southeast by the time we head into, say, Tuesday morning. But yeah, that's going to be sending a Arctic high pressure further southbound. These tight isobars, the winds are going to be cranking. So you're going to be seeing some gusty winds. That means the feels like temperatures are going to be much colder than the actual temperatures to the body. So now, granted, you haven't really experienced this colder shot of air yet, so your body hasn't really acclimated to this. So it's going to feel even colder than what it would typically be, say, if this comes in January. But you get the idea. I mean, the winds are going to be gusting of 30, 35, if not upwards to 40 miles an hour with a strong north wind sending southbound. And you're going to be feeling this front in a big way, especially as we head into Sunday morning. Now, I've been talking about this for the last several days, and finally the mesoscale guidance is starting to come in range with the NAM extending out 84 hours. But yeah, these are single digit wind chills as we head into Sunday morning, folks, through areas of the Dakotas where you're seeing the snow flying in the low teens as far as feels like. So it's going to be a chilly, raw day coming up for Iowa. And then further south, you got teens, even sneaking into the 20s for feels likes in Kansas, back into Missouri, Illinois, and down to the freezing mark. Now, get to the idea. Feels like 44 in Dallas, but the latest Euro and GFS model have it at 57. Yeah, that means the NAM, coming in with these mesoscale guidances range is starting to feel the effects of this really colder air mass. That means it's traveling much faster than what the models can actually see. So this is a true Arctic air mass for, the second week of November standards. And yes, that is a glimpse of the polar vortex. This is the tropopause, and you can definitely see a piece of that polar low dislodging from Canada and sending it southbound, and it goes right over the Ohio Valley. I mean, this is definitely a chilly, if not Arctic air mass, and believe it or not, it's even going to sink even further south than that, especially as we get into Tuesday. But there it is. Snow should still continue to ring out. Now remember, Arctic air is a dry air, so it's fighting some lift, and it's we're not talking some massive snowstorm. We need to stretch imagination, but some areas could see definitely some, a couple of inches of snow, definitely not out of the question. And where this wraps around, and especially where we get some of this lake effect snow, these can really add up. But on the back side of this low, as it pushes northbound, you're going to be getting some of that north wind on the backside, and should start to elevate some more lift associated with it back into Indiana, heading into Ohio by then, getting into Kentucky, portions of Tennessee, back through the Appalachians, getting into West Virginia. And that will continue to ring out for some precipitation as it swings into the mid-Atlantic region. But look at the actual temperatures, folks. Yeah, these are actual temperatures, not feels like. So we're talking a hard freeze coming up for Oklahoma and Kansas, much of Missouri, getting back into portions of Tennessee. Look how far south the 20s go, folks. That's all the way down into Louisiana, Mississippi, getting into Alabama. Yeah, even the freezing mark into portions of Dallas. Likely not an official freeze at the airport, but if you live outside the city, you're likely going to see a light freeze coming up on Monday morning, and that will continue to push eastbound. So it's more of a glancing blow on the central part of the U.S., and those areas across the Ohio Valley into the southeast are going to take the full brunt of this Arctic air, polar vortex type air mass as it gets going into Tuesday, finally settling out on Wednesday. But here's the latest ensemble guidances, giving you the kind of the probabilities of areas that will likely see at least some snow up to an inch, if not more. So yeah, you should start to have a snow swath originating back in through Montana, going through the Dakotas, back through Minnesota, as well as into Iowa, ring out more snow portions of, Wisconsin, Illinois, back into Indiana, through Michigan. And then as the low really wraps up on the backside, that's going to shift it a little bit further south into Kentucky, portions of Tennessee, especially the higher elevations, getting into the Appalachian Mountains there, into West Virginia, Western PA, and upstate New York. Then, of course, Vermont, New Hampshire, and a good part of northern Maine will see snow. That's the Euro. This is the GFS. So kind of matching, if you will, of the similar snow swath and the rounding out of this low pressure center as it continues to shift northeast. So if you live in this zone, do expect at least some snow that's going to be coming out of this air mass for Saturday, Sunday, going through Monday, and then finally settling off on Tuesday. But further south, yeah, that is your polar vortex. Look at the glancing blow all the way down in the southeast. Yeah, that's even touching Florida, folks. Yeah, that's why when I show you these temperatures, it kind of makes sense why you're going to get so cold that far south so early. This is a true Arctic air mass that's coming southbound, again, for the second week in November. But yeah, these are temperatures, coming up on Tuesday morning. We're talking widespread 20s again in Missouri, Arkansas, even East Texas. Yeah, that's a 35 there in Houston. Yeah, that's the colder air masses continue to trend a little bit colder with this update. Now that we're getting these shorter range models started to really feel the effects of the true impact of this air mass. And look, I mean, that's pretty impressive. 22 degrees, 19 in southern Georgia. That, I don't have to tell you, folks, that's a 28 in the Florida Panhandle. This is a cold air mass, 29 all the way down into Savannah. I mean, this is crazy. This is definitely a chillier air mass because it shifts. The predominant push of this is going to be on the eastern side of the U.S. and it's still going into Wednesday. So I mean, this lock all the way down into Florida. You could have back-to-back freezes. Florida, for the Florida Panhandle. Look at Tampa. That's 37 degrees, folks. That is definitely cold. No matter what month you're talking about, really, for Florida. I mean, all the way down to the upper 20s. The freeze extends into the Carolinas through Virginia as you start to moderate as we head into Wednesday, especially into Thursday. And yeah, this is the setup, you know, heading into like with the glancing blow for Oklahoma and Texas, and the main pushes into the Ohio Valley and a good part of the Southeast. Whenever you see something like this, a displacement, obviously further north, you're likely going to be warm because it's just a displacement of that colder air that I showed you at the beginning of the video that's colder now up there, and it sinks southbound. So those places start to warm up comparatively for those areas, and then the ridge will start to come back as we head into later half in the week. As this starts to retreat northbound, the ridge will start to take over and swing back into the middle part of the country. So it's a rapid shot and a whiplash, if you will, if you know, this warmth and then, you know, really cold stuff, and then the slingshot around on the backside, all within 5 days, folks. So yeah, this is going to be a rapid change in temperatures, because by the time we head into Friday again, next Friday, we're definitely warm for you know, a good part of the country. We're going to be back into the 80s. Yeah, you're going to be back into the 80s in Dallas. I mean, so this is going to be a rapid change and a shock to your system coming up for the week ahead. So kind of buckle up. I mean, we're in for a little ride. All right. So guys, I appreciate you watching. Do like this video. Definitely hit the subscribe button and catch the next update. Wire protect you before and after the storm.